Good afternoon, and welcome to the Parking Task Force the Second, holding our public meeting here at the Senior Center. Are there any announcements from the board or the public? Joe, did you raise your hand?
No.
Oh, okay. Seeing none, we'll go into the minutes, which Wayne has distributed electronically and physically to us. I'd entertain a motion for approval or adjustments.
I would move that they be approved as written.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much, Wayne, but we're calling for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that was unanimous. The next item on the agenda is a review of recent correspondence. There has been no recent correspondence submitted to the town hall. And the only one is I put a note here about an inquiry on cell phone app, which somebody sent a note to Suzanne and she forwarded it on to me. It was one of those fishing expeditions, but some person wants to develop an app for beach status, beach parking status, and she's just out drumming up the market, so.
Is that his or her general business, or that's just?
It is her desired business.
Okay,
I'd say it's got a ways to go.
okay.
I sent a note back saying when you had something, let us know. So, then we go on to update of surveys. Anything on any of these surveys? The Marina survey?
Yeah, the Marina survey has been closed out, and I've done a summary of it, and we have to discuss today whether we try to somehow merge the data with the stuff, the materials we manually input or not. It does provide its own report, which we can tabulate that way, but we won't be able to manage as many. But there was 150 odd surveys that were submitted, most of which were residents or non-residents. I think we only got,
This is the Marina?
yeah, this is the one at the beach office, I guess.
Oh, no, I'm on the Marina.
Oh, on the Marina, okay. Yeah, what I did input Joe's, the manual reports into SurveyMonkey and compared the results, which I'll submit to you all. It's probably not worth going through. There wasn't any radical difference between yours and mine, other than it differentiated between residents, slip holders and commercial people differently. So it gives different percentages for that, which we could have calculated before. And I think you have a few more in there, because it was some people that filled that out as both a commercial and a slip holder, and I couldn't input those. I think you dealt with them, but you got 16 more than I do, and that's the number. So, but basically it's in SurveyMonkey, so we can manipulate it if we want to.
Okay. Any questions on that? If not, we'll go to the taxpayer survey, which was the biggie, and that's the color-coded thing that you have. You've seen this before. We really haven't talked about it. We didn't have Bruce available, and I don't know if there's some quick summary or something to go through on this.
I do have some key points that I'd point out. So I'm sure you've all memorized this, but here's some key points. So I'd say taxpayers have mixed views about the availability of parking at the ocean beaches. 30% are satisfied overall with the availability of parking, and 27% are dissatisfied overall. That's why I call it mixed. We asked them when they visit the beaches. It's primarily between 10 and 3. 54% between 10 and 3, 18% before 10, 14% after 3. Taxpayers frequently experience full parking lots at the ocean beaches. 56% experienced a full parking lot at their first choice beach several or many times, and 41% experienced a full parking lot at their second choice beach several or more times.
In looking at this chart you have, those numbers appear in the gray at the top,
Yes.
Okay.
so people can orient themselves.
And the
Okay.
numbers below are the number of people in the...
The numbers below are also percentages of that group.
Oh,
So
okay.
each column is a group of people. So I should probably look at that first. So the first column after the question, after the items, is everybody who took the survey. So in that top left, it's 38% of everybody said if parking at my first choice beach was unavailable, I often waited in line. And people who are residents, 37%, people who are non-residents, 40%. Those who said they were overall satisfied, of that group, 32% said that they often waited in line. 47%, so more so, of those who said, who are or dissatisfied overall, said they waited in line. And then then there's each of the
Wait a minute,
beaches.
hang on. I'm not sure I interpreted it that way.
Okay,
What that says to me is that of the people who waited in line, 47% were dissatisfied.
no.
Flip it.
It's of the people who are dissatisfied. Each column is a separate sample or subgroup of the entire sample. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I could see how that could be confusing, yeah. Yeah. So just like all is for everybody, overall dissatisfied, those are just the people who in the last question said either they either disagreed or strongly disagreed that they were satisfied. So that was 27% of everybody. And of those, 47% of them said that they waited in line. And then you could look down at all the other items.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yep.
Okay, then we have each beach. People who said things were full at their most frequent beach, 56% of those, and that's each cell is the percentage of people in that group who answered strongly agree or agree. Okay. So you want to take a look at that, but I've got some more summary things.
Okay.
I probably should have done that first. Okay, fewer than 1/4 of taxpayers forego going to a beach if their first choice beach was unavailable. That's one of the stats here, which I thought was noteworthy. And 50% drove to a pond or a bay beach if their first choice wasn't available. 41% drove to another beach, 38% waited in line, etc. 24% did not go to the beach that day. That's why I said that stood out to me. It's about 1/4. 17% arranged to be dropped off, 12% circled around till something opened up, 2% parked elsewhere and used a car service. And not many people do that, but some do. LeCount Beach experienced the greatest percentage of people who wait online. The percentage of taxpayers who waited in line at their first choice beach, if it was unavailable, are 58% LeCount, 44% Whitecrest, 42% Newcomb, and 39% Calhoun. The shuttle, slow me down if I need to go
Well,
slow.
yeah, I need to slow down.
Okay,
I lost you on those last. So,
So you said LeCount, how many people?
58% of the people who said LeCount was their first choice beach.
Yeah.
Waited in line there, if parking was unavailable.
where do I see that number? So,
Okay, let's find it.
Is that the gray box, 58%?
50, it's in the gray.
Yeah. Under LeCount.
under the count,
LeCount, 58%.
I don't see a 58% under the count.
Oh, wait. Let's see if I got this right. 58% of the people say LeCount is their
Favorite.
first choice beach. That's in the gray, up top.
No, that question was, do you go to these beaches? It wasn't a ranking. Because if you add those up, you get more than 100% in the gray.
I'll pull out the survey. A lot of stuff in here, so I want to make sure we can understand it. Yeah.
LeCount surprises me because not many go there, well, this year. I don't know what the case was last year.
Okay. The question is, where we asked them about beaches, how often in 2018 did you go or want to go to each of the beaches?
Okay,
So that 58% is the people who said they often in 2018 wanted to go or went to LeCount Hollow. Or, yeah, whichever the first one.
but
Yeah.
Newcomb gets an 83%.
That's Newcomb, right?
Yes. Yes. And so what the cells have is the percentage of people who go to that beach often, and if they experience, the first row is if they experienced, if they had waited in line, second one is if their second beach choice, that kind of thing. So the question you had, Denny, was on which number?
Well, I just wanted to make sure we understood what the question was, because the choices of beaches in the gray,
Yeah, those are the people who said that
people went to.
they
wanted
went
to-
many or a few, many, I believe it was several or many times to that beach. So that's why it doesn't add up to 100%, because people go to more than one beach.
Right, yep. And then to read that first row, under Newcomb, it says, of the people who answered yes to Newcomb,
Yes,
42% said they wait in line.
right. They often wait in line,
Okay,
exactly. So it's about the same for all of them, all the beaches.
yeah. But what I was trying to drill into is there a difference in attitude between the people who go to Newcomb's versus the people who go to Whitecrest? And I don't think I can do that.
Well, if you look to the second page to overall satisfaction,
Yep,
so the last item, the people who attend Newcomb, it's 28% are satisfied overall. Cahoon is 28%. Whitecrest is satisfied with the availability of parking, 29%. LeCount is only 16%. That's satisfied overall with the availability of parking.
Well, that just doesn't make any sense. There's parking, there's parking at LeCount almost every minute of every day. It's almost never filled
well,
up.
this was 2018. I don't know if that was a different year than 2019.
I just know, I'm pretty sure from what I've heard from Linda at Newcomb, that it was pretty much, you could just
And
drive
there
down there
was.
and park.
And there was, and you'll see in this other data that LeCount didn't fill up but once this year. But I don't know if last year was different because the surfing conditions were different.
got you.
And we've got last year's answers.
Yeah, I got you.
And when I talked to Dana at LeCount, he said the surfing conditions have been terrible this year.
Yeah, there was very little surf anywhere.
Yeah.
But I'll check that, because, unless you really think there were big differences between year to year.
Well, there could be. I mean, we heard that earlier from Suzanne and from John Ryerson. Okay,
Okay, all right, so some other
Sorry.
major points.
yep,
The shuttle in 2018 wasn't that widely used. 59% were aware of it, but only 6% used it. 16% would use it if it were free, 10% would pay a small fee.
okay.
My guess is we had more use this year, but
I have to talk to Dan whether he had more volume. I think they keep track of how many people use it a day.
well, probably more people are aware of it now, too. It takes a while for word of mouth.
And I'm not sure well, no, in the survey, we pointed out that it was between Whitecrest and Cahoon.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure people were thinking that way of, would you take it?
Yeah, and the would you take it, in the commentary section of the surveys, there wasn't much call for it. Because of, you can't get all your stuff on it, doesn't run frequently enough, and that it would disturb the Newcomb Hollow waiting in line issue.
The other thing I had was I looked at this column of the overall dissatisfied, people who said overall dissatisfied with the availability of parking at the ocean beaches. And that was 229 people out of the total of 908. And of those, 47% waited in line if parking was unavailable at their first choice beach versus 32% of those who were satisfied overall. So more people aren't happy because they had to wait. 32% did not go to the beach that day if parking was unavailable at their first choice beach. So more than, overall, it was like about 24%. So 32% of those people who couldn't get into their first choice beach just said, "Oh, I'm not going to the beach today." Those who are overall satisfied, 13% said that, only 13% said they didn't go to the beach. So more people just didn't go to the beach, about a third. Only 20% of the dissatisfied versus 57% of the satisfied drove to a Ponder Bay beach if their first choice was unavailable. So the people were dissatisfied, saying, "No, I want my beach. I'm not going to go somewhere else." And 61% of the dissatisfied versus 35% of the satisfied were aware of the shuttle. So people were aware of the people who were dissatisfied were more aware of the shuttle than the people who were satisfied.
I have a where are the actual numbers of respondents? Are they on this sheet? I see a number up here.
Page 2, page 2.
In the top cells, I got the number for each group. So it's hard to read. The all is 908. The people who are residents, 42% of those. So it's, I don't have the numbers, I have the percentages.
But not by beach? Or is that something
Well,
you could figure out by taking a percentage of?
Yeah. So
If you take-
83% of the 908 say Newcomb is one of the ones that they go to frequently or often.
Just remember that on the beach choices, you actually end up over 200% there on those percentages because people go to several.
Yeah. So it's a lot of data to synthesize and trying to interpret. So, I took a crack. I'd recommend you all do that. Look at all the numbers and say, all right, what does this really tell us?
I guess in relation to the major questions we're trying to answer is there a need for additional parking? I mean, that's, and, is there a need for a shuttle service? I think are the two key things.
Yeah, so the main thing there is of everybody who took this, which was 908 people, 39, only, in terms of overall satisfaction, it's only 30% are satisfied overall.
And 27% are dissatisfied,
Right.
and the rest are don't knows.
They're in the middle.
Yep.
I think the one thing this points out too, as well as everything else that we've done, is technology is definitely wanted as far
Yep.
as identifying what's available when.
Yes, people would really like that. That was, that came out high. I think I have
That was in a class of its own.
59% would check parking availability on the web if it were there.
Well, one of the things I suggest we try to get to is some conclusions on all this data, and you've given us some, and we ought to come prepared to make our conclusions.
Is that at this meeting or next meeting?
Next meeting, probably. It's too, unless you want to try to do it now.
I don't know, it's up to you. I mean, why don't we get through the agenda and see if we have time at the end, but
Okay.
I think there's some that you could start pretty easily, the
Yep.
technology ones are given. And I think the fact that we don't want to recommend anything for the marina till it's dredged is probably another one.
Well, that wouldn't show in this survey, so.
Well, not this one, it would be in,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, if you're just looking at this one, right?
To my mind, we ought to try to get a couple of conclusions out of each survey.
Okay,
A couple or a few conclusions, so that we can kind of wrap this stuff up.
And will we take these results and compare them to this sheet here? Because this seems to paint a little bit of a different picture, potentially.
It does, in terms of the beaches and all that, but different time period.
Yeah, my comment on some of the beach parking is that the question in here about if a free shuttle is offered, would you take it from Newcomb? And my recollection is 4 out of 5 said no. And just so anecdotally, over the summer, the woman down at Newcomb would occasionally walk up the line and tell everybody, that there's plenty of parking at Lacan. And my observation for those 3 times that I saw it, that I'd watch her go up, she'd tell everyone, no one turned around. 0, no one.
Well, I think that shows up.
And it just sort of shows that in terms of Newcomb, that they'd rather wait in line than take a shuttle. And if my anecdotal observation is correct, then they'd rather wait in line than drive down to the other end of town and park and go to the beach.
Yeah, only 16% of those who say Newcomb is one of the beaches that they go to frequently said that if a free shuttle from Whitecrest to Newcomb and LeCount was available, I'd use it. Yeah, so it's small.
16?
Yeah.
Just, I heard a very highly objective but interesting observation about a shuttle. And the person said, this is somebody that's like a 3rd-generation beachgoer here, said, a shuttle would diminish the beach experience,
That was,
for what it's worth.
well, that's because they bring more volume, and in the commentary, even from those that were at the beach office, was that they thought it would spoil Newcomb's, not being extremely crowded, or it's bad, but,
Yet it is done all the time by the National Seashore Headquarters to go to Nauset in great volume.
I pointed that out to the person, but they stuck to their statement.
Old habits die hard.
well, I guess we might be forced to it if we lose a lot of parking, and you can't rebuild or add more. But I guess that's another thing, maybe Janet, are we supposed to be recommending expansion, not expansion, that kind of thing, or is that going to be left up to the Board of Selectmen, or Select Board?
I think it would be up to you to recommend, and then it would be up to the board to decide. Where you guys are here to see what the numbers are and the
Yeah.
survey, and who would take shuttles, who wouldn't,
Okay,
who needs it, but,
yeah, well, when we get into the big spreadsheet, I can comment on that, but
Yeah.
I'll stick with this one.
Any other, on this one?
So again, it's a lot of data. I'd encourage you all to look at it. Call me if you have any questions about it, and try to pull out what you think the most salient findings are that are relevant to our charter.
Okay.
The other question I have for you, Bruce, is, we do have this second group of surveys from the people that filled them in at the beach office, 146 people total. Is it worth inputting those manually into the bigger survey, so we have now 1,100, and because I know the questions aren't the same, but the first 2 you could just skip. I think it could be done.
I would think it would probably make sense to look at the results there of those and
Okay.
compare them as opposed to merge the databases.
All right, okay.
900 is a lot of people,
Yeah, no, it is,
so-
yep,
so,
yep.
I don't think it's going to change things a lot.
Yeah, we could compare the percentages, I guess, that would be, yeah.
I like the fact that we have taxpayer information isolated on this.
Yeah, well, this has taxpayers, yeah,
Yeah,
100 of them were taxpayers.
well, then we've already got 100 of that.
1,000, yeah.
Yeah. But no, they could easily be repeats.
They could be, I mean, you know,
I like the purity of the data.
okay.
Of the
We won't
taxpayers.
contaminate it then.
Yep.
There weren't major differences between how residents and non-residents feel about all these issues. I mean, awareness of the shuttle, it was 65% residents, non-residents 55. So people here all year were more in the know about that. If parking availability was on a website, I'd use it. Non-residents 62 versus 55 for residents. So those are, but otherwise the percentages are all within just a couple of percentage points.
I think for a town with the elderly population we have, that's a pretty good number, because, you know, a lot of them just aren't tech savvy, but.
Well, this is interesting. If my first choice was unavailable, I didn't go to the beach that day, 29% of the residents said that versus 21% of the non-residents. I guess the residents say, well, I'm gonna be here all year anyway. Non-residents, well, I'm here only for these 3 weeks. Well, I rent out to my house the rest of the time, so I'm gonna go.
Well, Bruce, do you want to try to kind of itemize a listing of conclusions that we can?
Yeah, I have them written down, and I'll look at it, I'll come up with some more too, probably.
Okay,
And I'll send it
and
to
we
you.
can each feed into you if we have some conclusions.
Sure.
All right with everybody? The next survey was the merchant survey, and I think that's closed out, and we need to have some conclusions on that. And I need to have the data in front of me in order to do that. I think, in my
Agenda
mind,
Next meeting?
yeah.
Okay.
What's the status of that one? That's been,
There's no more input allowed, but we've done a summary of it. And I think we covered it at one of the previous meetings, but we could do it again next time. Nothing's been added to that database.
And I'm not sure we learned a whole lot other than the employees would like to have some parking. And they might be willing to walk 5 minutes, but not 10 minutes.
Right. And the fact that they don't seem to need a shuttle or anything along that line.
There are some other conclusions that I got out of that in terms of awareness of parking requirements under the zoning bylaws.
Yeah.
I think there's a lack of there's not as much awareness as there should be. Let me put it that way. I won't say lack, but, so. Okay, and the beach permit office, I know we've done an awful lot of effort on that, but I'm not gonna put much weight into it.
No, there wasn't a resounding response.
Yep.
And as you say, there might be some dual responses there, but I'm not sure. But I thought you would have got more of the renters and lodging guests, but there was only 42 people that filled out the form.
Really? Wow.
Out of how many,
Stickers did we send?
roughly? I mean, it's like a couple thousand probably of that type. Like 1 week, 3 week, 2 week, 3 week, or 3 day.
About 4,900.
Yeah, so it's like less than 1%, or almost,
Tenth of that, wait.
yeah, 10th of 1%, yeah.
There were 4,900 non-taxpayers buying permits. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute,
Okay.
Suzanne. So, I'm not sure we need to have any conclusions other than no conclusions from that survey. Suzanne, we've got you next on the list for beach permit sales in 2019 versus 18.
So, maybe to the meeting.
Thank you very much.
While you talk.
Okay, yep.
Go ahead.
Well, as you know, it rained almost every day in June and in May. So the summer started off really slowly, and when I ran the figures at the end of July, we were behind 2018 in numbers. Not necessarily in dollars, because the stickers went up $5 per week this summer. So financially, we're okay. At the end of the summer, I realized that a couple of things happened. We were up 154, we were up 154 in 1 week stickers, 20 in 2 week, but 362 in 3 day stickers. How people buy their stickers has changed. People will come for a week and they'll do stuff for a few days and then they'll come buy a sticker for the last half of their week. Or vice versa, they watch the weather. So they're driving different destinations on Cape Cod and whale watching and doing whatever. So they're still here, they're buying stickers, but it's changed in
That's
their pattern.
Just looking at the numbers, that's about a 35% increase in volume.
Could it be that, can I ask, could it be that there's more people renting for less than a week? Where it used to be traditionally, you can only rent Saturday to Saturday or Sunday to Sunday, and now there's more options available to people?
I'm pretty sure the Airbnb and the other options for staying at just a traditional B&B have changed the patterns of how they come here too. Which is fine, because you get 2 groups of people in 1 week instead of 1 group of people for 1 week. And I think that's what's happening.
Have you seen much demand? There was some commentary in the surveys asking for a 3-week pass. I don't know if you've ever looked into that.
Well, considering that'd be a handful of people. The people who are here for 3 weeks have to buy a 2-week and a 1 week.
Yeah, okay.
I don't consider that an onerous burden on them. I wouldn't even know how many to order.
Yeah.
Is my
It wasn't a
issue.
huge comment, but it was just.
Right. Seasonal is stable. In terms of resident stickers, it's down 143 over last year, but if you look at the total numbers on the combination stickers, they are up just about the same amount that the resident stickers are down, which means that people are opting to put a dump sticker on their car with their beach sticker rather than just have a resident beach sticker. Many, many people told me this summer that if I only buy 1 dump sticker, I'm always in the wrong car. So I think that's a convenience for them.
So can I ask one question, Suzanne? What was there a spike then in August?
Yes, considerable spike in August. This was the summer of the beach stickers cost $5 more a week. There was a room tax, and there were sharks, and there was terrible weather leading into the season. I think July suffered from that. I think people who didn't come in July decided they might as well get here during August and opted to do that.
Yeah, just comment is I spoke to some store owners I know, and they said that July was awful in terms of sales.
Restaurants,
but
too.
they made up for it in August. They were pretty happy with the end result, but if it hadn't been for the strong August, it would have been dreadful.
Right. For instance, at Whitecrest, the last 2 days with the kiosks, we made over $11,000, which is more than we made the entire 2 weeks in June we were open.
So am I right in assuming, because the big question for everybody in this whole area is the sharks, that they scared away everybody?
No, what they're doing is changing people's behavior in the water.
Right.
Not
So
going
this is this I've been able to point to, and I'm wondering if I'm correct. This is the real objective data we have about people going to the beaches.
Correct.
There's no other data about people going to restaurants, well, they don't like your food this year. People not traveling much, well, they don't want to make left turns on Route 6. But this is objective data that we have. And it says that it's pretty much the same.
It's stable over a number of years. We had a 2017 that was a hugely beautiful, every day was a beach day summer, so there was a little spike in 2017, but we are stable with other years now.
Be interesting to see when the motels and hotels and restaurants do report their numbers, what they'll be, but as, you know, I've heard about the retail people catching up in August, but. I know you sent us some earlier numbers. When will the final numbers be available for just Whitecrest?
It's down there, $198,240.
Oh, it's on the bottom, I'm sorry. I didn't see it, yep. So it's up $22,000 from last year. And the price was roughly the same. How long was it $40 last year?
It was
1 week?
$40 until July 10th.
All right, so it wasn't that long.
And because, I think I've explained before, there was not a daily accounting kept in Town Hall for that summer, the way there had been traditionally. I don't know what the numbers were before the 10th and after the 10th. I just have a lump sum.
Yeah.
Ginny?
I was just gonna point out, to follow up on Bruce's comment about the Airbnb piece, I think that's a big part of it. And it could be why we're seeing the weekly rent, people are talking about the weeklies being off too. They're not doing the Saturday to Saturday, they're opting for 3 and 4 days now. So
And people see vacancy signs and think, well, those are the people who rent week to week. Renters have different options now. And some of the, from what I know of, some of the realtors who do week to week, well, they've seen their business go down a little bit because there are all these other options.
Exactly.
Even though there's been the taxes. Now it's, a lot of taxes need to people pay when they rent.
I can't speak to the taxes, but I do think the patterns, as Ginny said, have really changed. I think a lot of people coming in on a Saturday and planning to leave on Monday. They're also crafting their weekends to avoid at least one big traffic day, which is pretty smart.
Not totally related, but just to save you having to come back to the seat again, has any progress been made with the bus companies as far as?
No, we were scheduled to, at the meeting that, I think it was in July,
Right,
I was tasked with arranging a meeting after Labor Day, and this is the first day I've been at work since Labor Day, so I have not yet arranged the meeting.
okay.
You took a whole day off?
I went to the dentist.
That's a
Okay,
that's a
Suzanne, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you for everybody. You realize these are the final numbers for the year.
What did it cost to put in the kiosks roughly, final number roughly?
$18,500.
Okay, so it paid for itself certainly,
It was a good investment.
yes.
Okay, Wayne, you want to do the big spreadsheet? And note that Mike needs to get going pretty soon.
Yeah,
Lieutenant Hurley.
Let's just focus on his
So I think this would
material
be
first.
his area.
Yep,
Before Wayne starts, I'd like to hear Lieutenant Hurley and Suzanne's thoughts about the increased police presence and how that worked out from their point of view this summer.
That'd be great.
From the beach point of view, the increased police presence made a huge difference. Cahoon Hollow was managed very well. The 4th of July crowds didn't have the same impact they have had in previous years when no one was really prepared for them. And also, it's only a collateral impact on the beaches, but the fireworks that used to happen at Newcomb Hollow in great numbers were kept in check, and it made a big difference. Now, some grumbling, but it didn't take us 2 days to clean the parking lot on the beach this year.
It's just the same thing, echoing what Suzanne just said. It was definitely managed on our end much better with the support of the town administrator and the select board money so that I could bring in outside staffing. We had the Howard Police and the Barnstable Sheriff's Office came in with ATVs, number one, to get around the beaches, move around, and we worked with the Park Service also. So there was a presence there. To what effect that'll have in future summers, whether they'll start knocking down some numbers a little bit of buses now that there is some enforcement. Nantucket found after they really went after the problem, they just moved it somewhere else, so. Yeah, Cahoons. And another interesting observation with the buses, I was down there July 4th weekend talking to families and groups coming in and out. people are coming to stay Mashpee, Falmouth, on Cape somewhere, large families, and they are renting these buses and coming down to this particular beach. So that was interesting, that was just through talking to people. We don't have any data on it, but
That's because it's the best place to be on the Cape.
yeah, and they love it. And it's a mix of older, younger. I mean, it's an interesting, I know it has the perception of being a 18, 21-year-old beach, but there are some buses pull in and, they're all over 40, 50. They got coolers and, grills, and they're ready to go. So I believe out of the whole summer, one arrest down at Cahoon, that was it, so, with the presence.
So it sounds like the management of the buses, especially on Saturdays, you have no complaints about that. It's improved.
Much improved.
I think it'll even be better next year because there's going to be, I think, more of a system of signing up for when you're coming. They do that now to a certain extent, but the materials that Mark Spiegel provided me shows when they arrived and when they departed and that type of thing. So I can talk with you directly, but I don't know, spend a lot of time here, but whether we want to analyze further, in addition to how many came from what company and that kind of stuff. I don't know if that's a value.
It seemed like just off the cuff that about 85-90% was Cape Destination out of Harwich,
Yeah.
and the Funk bus out of Provincetown.
Right.
5-star, there was some outliers, and I really think that with our staff boarding the buses, and I think we got just about almost all of them. We may
Yeah.
have missed one or two here or there, and explaining the alcohol rules, explaining, the trash, the pickup times, and just overall expected behavior on the beach. Again, I'm a firm believer 50% of any potential problems will go away, and then we'll deal with the other 50%. It makes a huge difference.
I don't know if you can say this, but was that one person who was arrested, was that our chairman, Denny?
No. And the one that was arrested had multiple opportunities, found multiple friends, and we found him multiple times, so it was his fourth crack at it that day, so.
Well, I think one of the interesting things to me on this big data sheet is how many people came to the beach via commercial vehicles. In other words, didn't pay anything to come to our beach. They may have paid to the company, but almost 3,000 people, 2,933 people went to the beach on these commercial transportations. And that's a big number. And obviously, there are some big days, the 4th of July weekend being one of them. And then, let's see, and Labor Day.
Where do you see that?
Okay, on the bottom, on page 3, there's a highlighted line. And if you, in the middle, in one of the middle columns says,
Oh, I see.
commercial vehicle riders.
Okay. Wow.
It's on this one.
Yes, some of the commentary in the surveys that were filled out was, don't allow the buses anymore, which we know we can't do, but there is the point that they provide, divide that by 4, and that's how many less cars we have to park. And if they were to come, they'd be drinking and driving as opposed to be going on a nice bus and have a chance to sober up before they get to their car. So there's a safety value to that, but we do have to work on getting something to compensate us for police and trash.
The number of vehicles, again, on page 3 there, we had full-size commercial vehicles, 56 of them this year. So the remainder of the 135 would be the Ubers and vans and stuff like that.
It's mainly the 14 to 20 passenger vans.
Yep.
I don't think we had any, we had a few limos, but not much in the way of, we weren't counting Uber, unless they had a bus, but.
My own observation, I went out there a number of times over the summer and ran into Mike and Mark and a few others, and it looked like it was under control.
Yeah.
And these guys didn't seem all that panicked when I talked to them. So
I don't know how you did it July fourth weekend, there were 31 buses in one day.
Well, the outside, I mean, the outside resources was really the crux of our, drive to say, I mean, we only have 14 full-time members of the police department,
Yeah.
chief and myself included, 8 part-time. If I can hire 8, we were short this year, 2 or 3.
Wow.
So, I mean, bringing that outside resources in, they come with ATVs, which at the moment our guys are not trained on, so you're really getting a good bang for your dollar. They bring in the equipment. The Barnstable Sheriff's Office sat in traffic for 2.5 hours on Friday, the day after the 4th, so they didn't even arrive on location till noontime that day. So they're driving from Falmouth, Bourne, to come down and help out. And just looking under the commercial vehicles, the July 4th weekend was 61, and the other 7 Saturdays throughout the summer equaled just over 65. So that, unfortunately, we can't build up to the big weekend and then kind of build down. We just go right to the top and then kind of, I think 11 was the next highest Saturday, which according to Mark and the rest of the staff is very manageable. You know, you start getting over 20 and then you get over 30, but the system they had down, the staff that was there, we had some grumblings. We had to redirect some staff on Saturdays from Davis's Corner, from the post office, but that's just because the beaches were really, I mean, we had to get that under control this year.
Was the fact that there wasn't an officer at LeCount at the end of the day because of the shortage of staff this year, or?
Well, that was a 9 to 12 post, so, and it was on Saturdays throughout the summer, so we.
What about, I'm saying going out at 5 PM, people trying to get out, wasn't there an officer there in the previous?
It was only 9 to 12 on
Okay,
Saturdays.
okay.
At LeCount?
No, yeah, well, by PB's, or yeah,
Oh, you mean out on the highway?
on the highway, yeah.
Okay.
Because at times, that's the way I come out, between 4 and 5 PM, the line to get out would be beyond the power lines, if not longer.
I mean, basically in previous years, Mark Spiegel tried to do all this himself, and boarding the buses was a impromptu moment if he had the time to do it. This year, Mark was gathering data, boarding buses, and organizing pickup times, and the other 2 special officers were trying to keep that intersection
Right.
going, and between bikers, buses, food delivery trucks, and Ubers July 4th weekend were
They were a lot.
completely out of control. I mean, we had people from Medford, Somerville that came down to work the weekend for Uber. We just kept throwing them out of there every hour,
Where were
trying-
they picking them up at? In Wellfleet? or-
anywhere, the marina, the school, wherever they could tuck a car in somewhere.
Now, do you think it's worth keeping these numbers next year, too, the commercial vehicle, keeping a similar tally next year? Okay.
So I haven't been at any of the beaches when the Ubers come and when all these buses come. Does it impact parking?
They can't get into the lots because they don't have a sticker.
So they don't get into the lots?
We do everything up above on the top of the hill.
So it doesn't impact people coming into getting parking or?
No, it's just that intersection it's a nightmare. The buses we find stagger throughout the morning, so I think maybe at the most he would have had 3 or 4 buses. It was July 4th of last year that we had close to 30 buses coming almost at the same, within an hour, with about 2,000 people in the street, and it was chaos. And we had 2 guys working. Not good numbers.
Now, are Cape Destinations the ones that are doing the staggering, too? I mean, they only have so many buses, I think, but,
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of they sit in traffic, they have pickups at exit 6, exit 10, people's houses, yeah, just how they stagger in, but they all kind of want to go home around 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I'll give Mark Spiegel credit, he told the buses, 3:30, you get 1 pass around, and then, you're off. And the other interesting observation, standing down there, especially July 4th weekend, friends had trouble gathering friends who had been drinking, and the common theme coming off the beaches, we're just leaving them here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like herding cats. You come with 42 and you go home with 25.
Yeah.
And the others are Ubering out or doing whatever, but and look at the size of the beach. They make friends, they meet new groups, they're drinking, they're inside the beachcomber. So that was another interesting anecdote.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's like, and I'll also say, and again, the July 4th crowd, very polite to us, the younger crowd, happy to see us there, and very polite. I have to throw that out there, that it was, you know.
You mentioned the volume of Uber drivers. Do you allow them to wait when they pull up to that?
I mean, if we're there, no, we'll get them moving along, but
So they turn around and they come back?
they'll come back, yeah, they'll spin around, they'll, go up somewhere else, and, they're, typically why they're waiting is, because again, you're requesting the Uber, you've been drinking, you lose track of time, and the Uber is just sitting there waiting, and it's not so much they're drumming up business, they're there to pick somebody up, but they can't make the connection, and we're not letting them down the hill, we can't get into.
So we can conclude that you're not letting them park at the top either. You're keeping them
No,
moving.
we're keeping.
And that's got to be a significant factor.
It does, because then they just clog, they come back, I think they'll make, I don't know how long they have to wait, and then they'll charge the person, because it's all via credit card. But no doubt they're calling another Uber, because they still got to get out of there. We still have to get X amount of people out of that area, whether they make the first Uber, the second Uber, the third Uber.
Do we need to do what the airports do and have an Uber lot?
Yeah. Is there a signal at the Beachcomber for Uber? I know you get the Cape Cod phone, but I don't usually get a signal down there at the beach level. Not the beach level, parking lot level, but it'd be interesting to see how they get in touch with these guys. Yeah.
Good question.
We don't have a way to keep track of Ubers, do we?
Not yet, no.
No, okay.
I don't know if you can get that data from them or not.
And do Ubers go into the other beaches that we're aware of?
We don't, in theory, let anybody in who doesn't have a sticker. There are exceptions, but not Uber exceptions, like if somebody's grandparents want to go down and see the ocean or something, then we definitely let them in, because they're not dressed for swimming, they're just dressed for driving through. But if the Newcomb's is full and there's a line, nobody gets in. So, as Will can attest.
Okay.
She does a great job.
That day?
Janet?
Can we get a cost estimate on what this costs as far as patrolmen, extra time, including LeCount to Route 6, if we need a policeman there? Oh, yeah, I'm
That's
sorry.
you. That's you, Michael.
That's me.
This is a funny setup. Yeah.
Microphone.
Can we get a cost estimate on?
The board gave about $25,000 for various projects, and I know as of the last, which would have been third week in August, we've spent about 14,000. So I'll throw out that between 15 and 17,000 to have
Yeah,
those.
just to see what the,
Yep.
see what the costs are.
And that money was also used to put additional staff out July 4th at Newcomb's, as Suzanne said, some feedback on that, but it was dealt with also. So, yeah.
Do you see your police department getting ATVs at some point, or not enough demand?
Yeah, I mean, one of the other problem to make this effective was the scheduling hours. Even some of our staff did work it, they just weren't on machines. It was a 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. patrol. I have my day shift is 7 to 3, evening 3 to 11, and midnight's 11 to 7. So from a scheduling standpoint, if you had a Saturday off in July or August, more than likely they weren't coming back to work it. So in the future, it's something we'd like to improve on and maybe get our guys trained on them also, but it's, as of right now, we don't have anyone trained.
Ginny?
I just an observation on the additional costs. When we look at charging the buses, or if we go there, we should build that into the cost perhaps.
I did some rough calculations based on, and I haven't finished it, but it depends upon what we decide what the deal is. They offered maybe as much as $50 per bus, full size. I don't know if they'd be willing to pay $50 for a 30-passenger or 20-passenger van, but somewhere between $25 and $50 would bring in between $6,000 and $8,000 a year based on these numbers.
Maybe if we take the 3,000 people that came in, at least divided by the cost that it's cost, at least the police department, and then, right, figure it that way.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to get the money by the bus companies, because we've been told that we can't charge the people.
No, that's what I mean. So, but we could figure out, I mean, doesn't have to be discussed right now, but.
I think the plan is to charge a parking fee for the buses. Whether they use the lot or not is their question. It's up to them, so. And it might, I think it might be at the elementary school or the senior center.
Well, I know back during that July meeting when it was kind of brought about, and then Suzanne mentioned it also, if the school is an option, that's money that's not coming back to us.
Well, that's right.
That's going to the school district. So just throwing that out, to try to recoup some costs, it would matter where the buses go.
What about the lot where the temporary police station was? Is that?
I think we talked, it could probably, again, they'd all have to organize themselves, but, like full-size buses, maybe about 8 or 10, but
Yeah,
then
that's
if they
right.
block each other in and,
And then there's right here, right? How many do you think we could fit?
They estimated, he came by, I think, his presentation, he said he thought he'd get 10 or 15 parked here, I think. I'll have to look
Do
back
we
at the
know, do we know, is the school committee receptive to the possibility of buses parking there?
They don't have meetings in the summer, so I have not put the proposal to them. My thought was to meet with Jay from Cape Destinations and with Raphael from Cape Cab/Funk Bus, see what they were interested in doing, and then propose it to the school as an option. I don't think we have to, I would rather not worry as much about recapturing costs, because if it goes into the school coffers, it's still going to be to the benefit of Wellfleet people. So I'm less concerned about that than I am about regularizing where the buses can be when they're in Wellfleet. I would like to capture, it would be lovely if we could capture $5 per capita. So if we had,
Per person?
yeah, I'm not going to chop their heads off. $13,000 to $15,000 overall would be a good goal, and I think that would be enough to make me feel better, and I think it would not put a huge burden on the transportation companies either. So, because 90% of them are two separate companies, we might look to having them each pay a lump sum for the season, and then getting passes for up to X amount of buses of any size during the season for that lump sum. And that would mean they don't have to worry about how big the bus is, and is it a $50 bus, is it a $30 bus, is it a $42 bus. I like to make it they're as busy as we are in the summer, so make it easy.
When the owners of those companies appeared before us, they threw out the figure of $10,000, and they were quite comfortable with it.
And I'm banking on that.
And I would hope that the old temporary police station would be occupied next year, the parking area.
It's under the housing umbrella now.
So you can't move the beach permit office up there?
Not without permission from the committee that's dealing with that property.
Can't hear you.
I'm being quiet.
Okay.
Muttering.
They know that is a possibility.
All right.
So you would need, if that happened, you would need parking, sufficient parking for people who are coming to purchase a sticker.
Yes.
But there's plenty of room around there, I should think. There's probably 20 spaces in the lot itself, and then you get the whole school complex and field and all that, so.
What, do you remember what percentage bought them online this year as opposed to at the beach office, roughly? I know it was slow to start, but.
I don't know the percentage, but I do know that in 2019, it was a little over $52,000 in online sales, as opposed to 24 and change for mail-in sales the previous year.
Right.
Anything else? Anything else on this summary of observations, which just formal recognition of Wayne's work? My goodness. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, Wayne, when you look at this, because you've studied this. What sticks out in your mind?
Well, what sticks out is, obviously, the bus situation is as dramatic as we all had heard about, every weekend we have 20 buses, 30 buses. It's not the case. It's just one weekend where it's bad. And the justification for it is safety, to continue to let them come as long as they pay their fair share. The lack of any demand for LeCount/McGuire was kind of a surprise to me this year. And I think if you actually had a problem, I guess my thought would be, if you had a problem with, we lose a portion of one of the beaches, say Whitecrest, you could run a shuttle from LeCount up to Whitecrest and not have to do an expansion right away while you studied your options. The other thing that jumped out at me is that, Whitecrest was not as busy as we thought too. That only filled up 12 days this year, so. And it's mainly the Saturdays and the holiday week period. And the rest of the time, you could get there. And I think people enjoyed the fact that the stickered people, were focused on the ocean side as opposed to having to go to the other side of the lot. I guess the meters or the system worked well with a few signal problems, which I guess get solved. But
Two things. McGuire's was empty this summer because there's no bar there. If the sandbar moves itself from Newcomb's to McGuire's, McGuire's will be as busy as Newcomb's is.
okay.
And you will see empty spaces at Newcomb Hollow every day. That's number one. Number two, the kiosks worked well. We had significant signal problems in the beginning. And of that $198,000 and change that we took in, we probably lost $2,000 or $3,000 because at the very moment people were there in line with their credit card and needed to get on the shuttle bus, it wasn't working. So we just let them go because it was going to create even more chaos. So I would say we probably lost money there in that respect this summer.
Never took in cash in lieu of,
No.
and
I was going to make it work or die trying.
the day before, I think the 4th of July, whatever day they went operational, I think it was around 4th of July, the guy was there like at 9:30 at night trying to get him to work.
I will say that Danya Mahota, who is the owner, operator, CEO of Bonsai Logic, which operates our software for stickers in general and for the kiosks, drove from Brewster without any problem at all over and over this summer to make sure they were working. So hats off to him. We may have paid for the $18,500 for the kiosks, but I think we got at least $8,500 worth of service hours from him.
Were you able to reduce staff at all based on the system?
No, because the kiosks are kind of funky, the way you have to put your credit card in upside down with a stripe on a certain side, and then put in your 3-digit security code and your zip code, and people are clueless. So I had to have one person by each kiosk. Nope, turn your card over. Nope, the other way. The kiosks are going back to the manufacturer to have them retrofitted for
chips.
Thank you, chips, and also not require the zip code and the 3-digit credit security code on the back, which will make things much smoother next summer. Because we now have 2 antennas, that means we don't lose a signal.
Okay.
So overall, you were satisfied with the management of parking this summer and don't see the need now at this point for increased parking?
No, I think a lot of the initial requests for increased parking were based on the 2017 numbers, which are at least 2,000 more daily passes were sold at Whitecrest in 2017 that were sold this year. So that's, no, I'm sorry, 1,500. That's a significant difference. When we had the extra 1,500 people, yeah, we needed more parking. We don't have them anymore. The last 2 years have gone back to the previous year's levels of parking demands.
So the variable of the weather is an influence factor.
If we have a beautiful summer every once in a while, we're going to get inundated, but that is a positive and a negative.
Would you think there's still some impact on us being $30 and the rest of the world being $20?
Probably. And there's an impact on if you come to Wellesley and that's the only beach that's a pay beach, and you don't want to walk up and down that dune. And that's, I mean, there's a geographic barrier there, whatever that is. There's a physical barrier to parking there, that people who want to go to the ocean can go to Marconi and there's stairs, and it's $20. And it's their choice.
I think we only had 2 or 3 daytime rainfall this year, so it was pretty good. It was a little cool at times, and windy. But, and the other thing was, do you think by next year we'll have something that will have online service? So they can see what's available before they get to the beach?
I can't imagine unless we come up with an app over the winter, and they need funding for the app. So I would say probably the summer of 2021 before we see that.
I think you had indicated at one point, you looked into it was like 20,000, you thought, $20,000 to do something like that?
I'm sorry?
I think you mentioned in an earlier meeting there was $20,000.
Well, the Sharktivity app was
Oh,
$20,000.
Sharktivity.
That's my only rule. I don't know about any other apps. I just know that that app was $20,000 to develop.
Before you got here, I mentioned the person who sent in an inquiry about whether we'd like to have an app that you forwarded to me. And I haven't heard back from her. You know, my response was, when you get something to look at, we'll look at it.
Yeah, that's, a lot of people have really good ideas, and that's a really good response, because then it's on them.
Given what we've learned from this past summer in the management of all the parking, are you convinced that taking the electronic route is really needed?
Oh, absolutely. Not having the cash exposure up there, not having the need for change. When it's $30, I loved it when it was $20 because we didn't have to give change except for a $50. When it was $30, everybody had 2 20s.
I'm referring to the app, you know, online alerting people as to what beaches are crowded and overflowed and what beaches are not.
It sounds like a really good idea when you first say it, but it's heavily dependent on human data loading and observation. And right now, it would require additional personnel. So is it going to be worth, and how reliable are they going to be? And what about the beaches that don't have attendants to report the parking? I think there's too many moving parts for me to be able to support it
And funding.
and fund it
I'm gonna
at this
su-
point.
I'm going to suggest that we move on because Mike's got a time commitment, but I'd like to talk about downtown if we can a little bit.
I'm
Your
excused.
observations of downtown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne.
If I could, Denny, just real quick, going back to, I was just thinking about recapturing costs and the additional money that we receive for Cahoon. I don't want to put it all on the buses. I would say about a fourth of the crowd that is down there, but it is all the parking that comes into Cahoon / the Beachcomber, and they do pay a lease to have parking there, and those people are on the beaches on top of Whitecrest, who is shuttling down on top of Ubers and family drop-off. So the management of Cahoon, somewhat driven by buses being dropped off, and we needed to manage that, but, you know, it was also just issues going on down there because of the amount of people that were there, buses contributing to it. I just wanted to throw that out there as, you know, I don't want to put it all on the buses or the bus companies.
Now, if they were to offer staff, which I think they mentioned in the meeting, is that something you could deal with, or you wanted to keep it police only? And they were talking
Person-
about helping them unload and load, that's.
I mean, I know that, I mean, that, no, but as far as if staff could help with pickup times and communication with buses, working with Mark would be great.
Yep.
But if you have too many chefs in the kitchen up there and parking and,
Yep.
you know, Mark needs them here at 3:30 and the other guy saying 4, you know, it just, he even told me to go, you know, just, I had a clipboard one day and I had the number wrong right away and I'm like, here you go, you know, I'm gone.
You took your clipboard away.
Yeah, I took the clipboard away.
Were there a minimal amount of complaints from people who live on Ocean View Drive?
I honestly, I don't think there were any of,
Okay, downtown?
downtown. I spoke with Denny last week. The hope was, we usually have 2 community service officers, downtown area, the marina, on bikes, helping with rec and issues like that. This year, we were only able to hire 1, and she was cross-trained in dispatching, and we had some dispatching issues with staffing. So unfortunately, we were trying to get off the ground to have some input downtown with busier days, rainy days, cloudy days, and it never get off the ground. Just a personal observation, early mornings after beach, 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and cloudy days, Main Street is busy. It's tough to get parking, people in the morning picking up papers, coffee, food in the afternoon, the restaurants. We'll note the Lighthouse was not open this summer as a restaurant, so there was really just 1 restaurant left downtown. How often it was full, I honestly don't know, but it's the same issue as turnover. That's the idea of the time parking. I've been here 25 years, we've had time parking, took time parking away, have had time parking, so whether it creates the turnover, and back in the day, staff used to just move their car around. Up 2 hours, they run out, they're moving from spot A to spot B, you chalk the tire again, it goes on and on and on, so to what degree that plays also.
Did you have any complaints from merchants or anybody saying we don't have enough parking?
No, I mean, not directly to us.
My own observation, and I try to keep an eye out when I'm going downtown, which I can't get out of town without doing, is that there was always a space or 2 available, either along Main Street or in across from the old church there. So, and I never bothered to go back in behind Town Hall. So
Well, I think some of the
didn't feel like it was impossible.
No, I think some of the perception is if you're driving through there, you got delivery trucks, beer delivery, people on bikes, people walking around, so it seems overwhelming that, oh my God, it's so busy down here and people just drive right through. I think if you needed to find a space, most of the time this space is available.
Were ticketing of cars up or down, and maybe same for you, Suzanne, I think you ticket your own. Was the volume of tickets written this year or higher there or lower? Or,
You could have stayed with me.
I'll stay with you. That actually is handled by Jean McLaughlin, the principal clerk,
okay.
and I don't have the numbers for 2019.
And I talked to her.
We write a lot.
I talked to her today, and she doesn't have all the data in yet, but I told her that I would give her the format that she gave us last year, and she'll get the data for us. But she felt that it wasn't materially different in either direction.
If I could just add one thing about downtown, I think moving the fact that the farmer's market moved from Main Street in the center of town to Main Street adjacent to the church, where there's a lot more off-street parking for the farmers and for the buyers, it made a big difference, especially on Wednesdays. I mean, there was never a place to park on Wednesdays before they moved.
And I should think that the lighthouse being closed was significant too.
Oh, sure.
Any other questions in this area for now?
no, I think I'm.
Okay. If not, moving on, Marina, Joe, you got any conclusions on marinas or save it?
Well, I think one conclusion we would all agree on is that the marina continues to serve as a municipal parking area for the town. And I think it's quite clear that people feel that way, and they will tell you that that's their perception of it is that it serves that purpose. The other conclusion is I don't think there were outstanding problems with boaters complaining about a lack of space, except maybe the 4th of July week. But again, we're in that area where I don't think we can draw a definitive conclusion until dredging is completed, because I think we can anticipate that the demand will be far greater when dredging is completed, and that really should be restudied at that time.
The shutting down of roughly half the park on Porch Fest seemed to work pretty well. You didn't do that last year, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And one observation of that is that there were numerous people. There were 2 yellow horses that blocked off the area except an opening for 1 vehicle. And there were 2 signs there on each horse prohibiting parking. And more than a few people drove through it and parked there and were ticketed and were livid when they had the ticket. So there's a good degree of entitlement there with that idea of a municipal lot, and I've always parked there.
Is that a $75 ticket, that one?
I think it was 25.
25? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Joe, you have to address the parking for commercial and charter boats in that front lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because that came to head with the cone situation. I am guilty of putting a cone to reserve a spot, because if I leave there, I'm not parking down by the shed to bring all my gear up. Everybody has worked pretty hard on that area. Porch Fest was awful again this year. And clients have to walk. You've got the other side with the other slip owners, and the side that I'm on with those slip people. That has to be addressed, in my opinion.
How many spaces do
There-
you think? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There is definitely that issue for commercial vessels and their patrons
And the slip owners.
and the slip owners. There's no question about that. 5 years ago, the Marina Advisory Committee submitted a proposal to the Select Board to mark off a large number of spaces, and it was rejected. Okay? So we're aware that that's a very legitimate issue and has to be addressed. It's a fluid one now because of the overall lack of demand. I think some people are reluctant to mark off spaces. But there's no question in the next couple of years that is going to have to be addressed. Because you're business people, you need to make a living. And that should be receiving strong consideration, in my view, in the overall scheme down there.
And it's funny, just the thought, the Yellow Pier was always for commercial fishermen. Now we have mixed use between Max on the pier and the commercial fishermen. I fished out of Provincetown last weekend. That pier is all reserved for permitted people. And I know there's a physical barrier there, but.
There's also McMillan Wharf parking
Well,
area.
Exactly, it's the physical of the wharf, but it's reserved for the people that are working there. I don't know if those spots on the right there, first of all, the signage is horrible, but if they can be reserved for the commercial fishermen that are on the Yellow Pier. I know that was an issue this summer.
You mean,
There are, I see two issues there. One is the decision ultimately resting with the select board to accommodate you folks, to accommodate the restaurant owners, the shop owners, the gallery owners, and how that is going to be resolved. And the second issue is the more we allocate reserved parking spaces at the marina for various constituents, we need more staff to enforce that. The enforcement issue is a real significant one.
How many spaces do you think are needed to be blocked off for commercial use? Do you have any?
The old pier, you probably can get away with 5. And again, there's 4 or 5 boats that are fishing every day.
Yeah,
And it depends upon if you get up early. I'm up by 4:30, 5 o'clock down there, so I have no problem.
yeah,
My problem is if I have to go home, I lose my spot.
yeah.
And I'm not carrying my gear, so I end up parking in a no parking spot by the pumps. A lot of people do that. Wellfleet Marine, they're working, you know, you got two or three people, 2 people work there, so you got 1 or 2 vehicles there. Down below, Jerry, Francis, there's probably 2, I'd say probably 4 spots on that, on the side that I'm on. And I have no idea about the other side on slip owners. I don't know how you, maybe 13 with the slip owners on that other side where it's.
I didn't mean to leave out one constituency of the people buying beach stickers, which is another block for parking. So, given the limitations down there, there's a lot of sorting out that has to be done, and I think it will come to a head when we have dredging and there's a greater demand. I mean, one factor we've learned is that when dredging occurs, the harbor master is looking to increase the mooring field by 50 moorings. And so you're adding even more vehicles.
Question,
Yeah.
somebody mentioned that right now, that some people actually are paying for some of the parking spots down there? Is that, do they pay?
Paying for parking spots?
Yeah, trailers or something like that.
$20.
Or something I heard in
Yeah,
passing, but.
yeah.
It's $20 a day, isn't it?
it's overnight.
Yeah, overnight, yeah.
Overnight there
Could
is
be like
parking.
a commercial, like people rent them on a.
The
on a-
commercial people pay a season's
That's what I meant,
fee,
which we hadn't talked about here.
and there's the $10 fee at the launching ramp.
Yes, yes. I meant the commercial people, because I don't think the general public is aware of that, because I'd heard some complaints about it, but I think.
I mean, that's a good point. That's the other factor. Ultimately, when dredging occurs, meeting everybody's need and whether or not to charge them. And it's very competitive out there because many marinas provide parking and don't charge.
There was one or two comments in the marina survey relating to, the parking spaces for the boat and trailer. And would it be feasible, since there seems to be, with the exception of maybe Saturdays, a fair number open, to let the commercial people park the personal car there and they're back-to-back, so you'd have 2 cars in one spot. So that might alleviate some of the problem if you saved them as close as you could to the harbor master's office. I don't know if that would be acceptable to you or not, but.
It's still a distance. You
Yeah.
still have to come up and drop your gear off.
Is there a place would a couple of spaces for 30 minutes only to drop gear off help, or is that not?
I park in a no parking spot.
Okay.
As you know, that whole row is state mandated parking
Of the
for
boat trailer
trailers,
ones,
yeah. And when there's not a demand, people with single vehicles, commercial and boaters, will take up the middle row
Yeah.
in some of those trailer parking spots. But when you look at the operation, you have one person in the office who was selling passes for people to launch their boats and manning the phone. You have a second person. We have a very busy, lucrative fuel dock
Yeah.
down there who's manning that. Right off the bat, 2 out of 3 people are taken up.
Will the new fuel tanks change or add any spaces there, or is it still going to be, the dispensers will still be roughly in the same place?
Well, if you look at what the harbor master and the Marina Advisory Committee are recommending on that, the recommendation is new fuel tanks not be put underground, not take up space. It could be parking on top of the ground, but be located on the lot at 3 Kendrick Avenue. And we're going to be making further comments on that because we have in writing a recommendation from a marine engineer that all the permits to do that could be secured and it could be done. So that's a goal, but nobody knows the answer to that at this point.
Okay. On that
Yeah,
side?
my only comment is my observation over the summer is that area at the boat ramp where you're supposed to be sitting in your car is just used for general parking. Matter of fact, a couple of times I went there and the shellfish people's trucks were there, numbers so-and-so and so-and-so, and people even had sun visors in their car because they were there for the day.
Well, as Kevin has pointed out, when people can't find regular parking, that's what they do. They take anything available.
One of the responses in the survey was, what do you do when there's no spaces? I make my own.
Anything else along this general subject that's been pretty informative here? Continuing on with the agenda, I have on there a review of postings on the website. I think I'd like to work with Wayne, and you and I will decide what goes on there. It's out of date. It's not up to speed on things, but things like the multicolored analysis and the sheet that you did, I think would be useful to have on there, but we'll work there.
Yeah, we'll have to pare it down a little bit, I don't know.
Is there anybody that we ought to be chasing after in terms of getting more information in here? I think we've got plenty of information. We've talked to plenty of people. It's been very helpful to have the town staff available. I don't have any desires. I think the other side of this is, do we go out to people? Wayne was at the Non-Resident Taxpayers Association, and I don't know what kind of, well, I watched it on TV.
Yeah, just at the end, we just basically gave a very brief update and told them to refer to the selectmen's meeting of the 10th or 11th of June if they wanted full input, and that we were hoping to have some type of a forum meeting, which may not be a long enough agenda to do, but keep your eye out, and anything we do, we have to send, I'd say we'd send to them and they could CC through their newsletters. But there wasn't any major commentary or concerns that registered when I was there. That was right, Dale, right? I don't think there's any,
Yeah,
Dale was there too.
I thought you did a very good job of making us look like we were doing a good job.
It's not hard to do.
All right. Okay, the next one I had was planning for a report to the select board, and, well, I'd sure love to get a report to them, this fall, maybe late fall by the time we get it done, but, start thinking about what we want to say. And I think some of the conclusions that we try to itemize will help us there.
I guess in relation to that, we should concern how long we're going to keep SurveyMonkey up and running, or whether we'll be using it in any form or fashion next year.
Well, I think the town ought to be paying for that if we do that. Bruce, do we need SurveyMonkey being up and running? Do we have the data that we need?
Well, to do further analysis, we do. I think it's like $40 a month now, but I should have gone with the annual one, had I known, but, and then, yeah, they're constantly changing things a little bit, which really messed us up. They put in a new security system and didn't tell us. So I was trying to get on all Labor Day weekend, and I had to get they were sending the passcodes to Courtney at Town Hall.
Do you have any other surveys planned?
I don't know of any, but that doesn't mean anything.
I mean, well, I guess, do you do another survey now that 2018 wasn't such a bad year? I don't know. 19, excuse me, wasn't as much parking demand. It doesn't.
Joe?
Well, all in possession of the previous 2 surveys
Yeah.
that were completed. And in taking a look at them and a look at all the work that has been done, I think we've done a very comprehensive look, more so than in any other time in the past.
I'd agree. I'd like to move on and conclude and get on with other things, so. Given that, the next, number 9 is set the next meeting. The September 18th would be 2 weeks from today. We have the room here if we want it. So what time? I must admit that I was thinking 4 o'clock all day, and then I realized at 2:30 that we were meeting at 3, so, but as somebody said, habits are hard to change. I'd just soon stick with 4 o'clock.
I think Sheila said if it was later, she'd be able to come.
5, I think, or more, yeah, because she has to, I think she's working in the Provincetown office.
Well, I don't care.
Well, if it's later than that, she'll have to bring dinner.
Yeah.
4 o'clock it
4
is?
o'clock's fine with
4
me.
o'clock
yeah.
sounds good.
All right. And please do look at my findings to date and make your own conclusions, input there if you can, because I'm going to use a lot of those in trying to conclude a report. There'll be more to date, so would appreciate it.
Yeah, just,
One thing I think we should do in terms of findings and recommendations is to prioritize them. In other words, say, here's the most important thing that we think should be done, and then list them in priority order, because then it gives a little more guidance for the selectmen to look at it and say, you know, well, they didn't all, all aren't the same importance based on what the committee has looked at over the course of the year. Plus, it sort of forces us into making our own decisions about things and gives you some sort of a framework.
It'd probably be good too for each conclusion to say, this is based on this data, or
yeah.
this, you know, this objective data, or this survey data, or something. We can do
Well, in my mind, there are some general things, but then you go into segments, like the marina, like the Ocean Beach, like downtown, and that sort of stuff. And in my mind, I can prioritize at the marina, but I'm not sure I can prioritize the marina versus Ocean Beach.
Well, I would look at it as a more general thing. I mean, if I look, just glancing at the list, you know, enforcement, I think, needs to be a priority, and enforcement ought to include effective signage, since most of the problems that we've heard about seem to come from inadequate signage, that people really aren't aware of where they are and are not supposed to park. So that just is an example of that.
Yep.
It's funny, the town bylaws, a friend of mine got a ticket, so I looked into it for him. And the bylaws state, in the town of Wellfleet, if it doesn't say you can park there, you can't. So if there's a no parking sign, if there is no sign saying there is parking, you can't park there technically.
There are no signs that say parking that I'm aware of.
Well, that's, so any side street you technically can't park on.
That's right, and that's in the general bylaws.
Yeah.
I would also recommend, when we draw conclusions, that we support them with the public testimony we've received from Lieutenant Hurley, from Suzanne, and from other attendees of our meetings.
Yeah. Just a question about, there is some money still hovering in the coffers, I guess, for the study of White Crest, $50-odd thousand, I think is left, for the further, had they pursued the permits and what have you. In the event you decide not to do anything there, is it possible to reallocate that money to use as, to get the technology up and running faster?
It would have to be a town meeting article
Right.
to reallocate the money.
But you think that there would be would Dan, well, I'll just ask Dan, I guess, about it, but, and I guess the money just sits there forever if you don't spend it, right? If it's been,
Every once in a while, the treasurer will get annoyed that it's been there too long and do something about consolidating.
okay. Maybe they'll let you put mulch out here in front of the senior center.
And alligators?
Yeah.
Anything else? Motion? Will?
I move we adjourn?
Second?
I like that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.